was a typo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I am Jared, and I have asked Robert to remain off camera so he doesn't keep showing me up.
Wait, what? You mean I brought all the stacks of all my comics, other signatures I have to show off for nothing? Not even my Dave Stewart Rocketeer?
So we are talking about the Crisis. And what's up, Cameron? We're talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy.
I got that song too.
Anyway.
Okay, last joke.
All right. So so we're talking about this. Now, here's the thing about this, and Robert and I were talking about this before we went live. The thing about the Crisis movies is that for the situation that they were placed in other words, for the context around which these movies came out, pretty solid.
Yes, and especially if you look at it as less as a straight adaptation and more as the DC animated movie universe, it's telling, like, in its own way, the CW's Crisis was. It is for that what the DCMU was.
Yeah, because here's the thing about this. It's like, I'm against, like, as long as it covers the general plot of the stories per se, I'm totally fine with it, making changes, except for one change, and Robert and I will talk about this because this change was utter BS.
It's what taints the whole thing.
Not the whole thing. I don't think it taints the whole thing.
Okay, maybe not the whole thing, but it taints a big portion of it.
Yeah, it taints a big portion, and we'll talk about that because there may be a legitimate reason for why this change happened, but still, it's like, overall, it's like, while this isn't like arguably we haven't had a perfect adaptation of Crisis yet.
Nope, the CW didn't. The CW at least did better than people thought it was going to do.
Yeah, exactly. But see, where this has the advantage over the CW is the spectacle of it, because this nailed it.
Oh, I will give it that. I will definitely give it that.
Yeah, and then Cameron says, you know what makes it sadder is that's maybe the only time we get an accurate Crisis trilogy. Yeah, I said it. Come at me, CW fans, to a degree. So let's talk about this. So we're going to talk about this from a story perspective first. So
right,
the thing about this, the other ding on this movie is that it should have been 2 parts and not 3.
Right. I get why the third part was more of a case of wrapping up and setting things up that they couldn't set up because they had to rush over it. Like, can we bring up the behind the scenes things about this?
Yeah. So first, let me so as an introduction, so the Tomorrowverse happens, and we were supposed to get many more movies in this universe. What happened, though, is because James Gunn took over at DC. Now, this isn't like Gunn said, no, you have to end it. What happened was
they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, they didn't know what was going to happen. So they're like, to be safe, let's just go ahead and end it now. So if we need to reboot it, it's already done.
And from what Josie Campbell told me, they were already going back and forth even before Gunn, when they were as far back as I'm working on the Legion of Superheroes movie.
Yeah, and by the way, Brit's in the chat, so
he's back.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's sad, but again, I'm not going to talk about the animation quality because that's an issue with the entire Tomorrowverse. So that's not really. I'm just focused on this movie now. The good parts of this movie, Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
I got to bring that up. NJ and Britt are in the chat. I got to because you can. I've said this the entire Tomorrowverse. This universe adored Wonder Woman.
And I'll say this: it gave a case of having its cake and eating it too with the shipping.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. Sorry, Robert, you remember this. So it was during your birthday stream that I came on and Tevia brought this up. So what this movie did. So here's the funny story. Here's the behind the scenes, Robert. I don't even know if you know.
I might not.
So the movie was coming out and Teladia had seen it the day before I saw it. So he goes, Jared, you need to watch this movie. And I go, okay, why? And then he says, oh yeah, the Earth 2 Superman and Wonder Woman from Justice Society are together. So I go, come again? And then I tell Britt, and then Britt's like, oh my gosh. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And we looked at it and we're like, and then the funny part, so part one comes out, and the rabid Clovis fans, I differentiated it for obvious reasons. were like, oh, he's an adulteress, he's kissing. But even though in the movie, they literally say he was married to Lois, she died from old age, as would happen, particularly if this is the Superman from the 40s, and he moved on with Diana. That's a healthy thing.
Hey, Kingdom Come did that.
You know what I blame? There's this, it's kind of the precedent that was started with Immortal Beloved, where it's basically like, as far as he knows, Lois is dead, but then he goes, it'll always just be Lois for me.
Yeah, but to be fair, I also think that was like a case, and you could look at that and also feel of a case of, actually, I can't even defend it.
Yeah, because I got news, because again, as far as he knows, Lois is dead in that storyline. So I'm like, bro. But anyway,
that's the case of the writers knowing we're going to reverse it, so we don't want to.
Yeah, but anyway, yes, this did it great because, and plus, here's the thing, Robert. If there's one story, and what's up, Lego Master? If there's one story where you could do this well, and they did, it's this story because it's predicated on having multiple versions of the character.
And you still have the Earth 1 versions.
Yeah, which, ironically, here's the funny part. So DC Twitter, when they were advertising this movie, called him Superboy. I was like, oh my God, that's so good. All right, did you know for Earth 2 Superman, they originally wanted him to have the like graying sideburns from like Kingdom Come?
Why didn't they?
I think because they didn't want Superman to look old or something like that.
True.
So they did like the more facial lines and everything like that. And that's the other thing I like. Both Supermen were treated with respect, and the relationship with Diana was treated with respect. That's I gotta be honest, Robert. That's partly why I also have a high opinion of this, because
fair enough.
Because remember, I had just been coming from the tomorrow with DC AMU, where in Death of Superman to Reign of Superman, they butchered it.
Oh, I agreed. That was such a mishandling.
So I was like, I'm glad I get it right.
Especially the reasons made no sense.
Well, also, here's the thing about this. When they're fighting the shadow demon, so you find out they're vulnerable to light, and Diana's like, the light of truth. So she's whipping around the lasso of truth.
I would say that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say I liked how they handled Dr. Light. I liked how they handled some other key factors here. I would say, though, the simplifying, like having Harbinger be Supergirl, that just felt like a necessity.
Well, it's because it's like also they hadn't established the Harbinger character, so it's like it would take too much time to establish that. We might as well have her be. But also the Harbinger design was actually really well done.
Oh, it was, and like I said, this was already confirmed. It was locked in by the time of that Legion superheroes movie that she was going to be Harbinger.
Yeah, so this movie was also used to like, particularly part 1 was like, let's see how the Justice League is established, and I go, okay, yeah,
it's like Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Yeah, but so was Warworld, so it's like, but it's still, it's like they were using this to like say, okay, so let's try and like tell the stories that we wanted to tell but couldn't. So establishment of the Justice League, and I go, okay, that's pretty good, and the lineup is not that bad because you have like Hawkgirl, you have Vixen. I love where Hal Jordan's like, no, I'm already part of a team. Flies away.
Right, but I would say though, the stuff with Flash, I am torn on.
On that, so this movie makes Warworld so much better because if you guys go back to my old reviews, when I reviewed Warworld, I said the problem with Warworld is that those first two like things, the Cowboy Wonder Woman and the Caveman Batman, don't make sense as to why they're there.
Right.
Crisis makes them relevant.
And you realize that's what that was used for. That was done more so they can actually have those elements to be reused in Crisis. That's why Warworld was done that way. So they can at least use some of the funds from that movie to build up resources.
Yeah, exactly. NJ says, what did you guys think of Psycho Pirate? I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
He was done really well. Like, oh
well
my
handled.
God. By the way, rewatching this, I thought, and I remembered back when I was watching it. So Blue Beetle, I thought Psycho Pirate was going to kill Blue Beetle.
Oh, yeah, so did I.
I was like, oh, I see what you're doing. And what's up, Thoth? Because it's like, I thought they were going to basically cover also the Maxwell Lord stuff, which they didn't, but okay, it's fine. But still, it's like, yeah, Psycho Pirate, I didn't expect them to nail that well. They did that one really well.
Yep, and like I said, they did Dr. Light very well.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about that. So, as a Dr. Light fan, tell me about that.
I liked how they stayed relatively faithful to her character, although how she got the powers did come off a little like convenient. But overall, her characterization was some of the better it's been handled, especially because the most dialogue she ever got was 2 episodes of Justice League Unlimited. Lauren Tom voiced her very well, but it just felt like the closest she got was the one bit in Justice in the epilogue episode where they're dealing with Ace. And
Mm-hmm.
then, oh, please, you mean to tell me that all of this is real? And then when she says that, when Waller says Ace is heading towards an aneurysm, Dr. Light goes, problem solved. I'm like, yeah, that's her coldness. But again, it's so little. And it's way better than the CW having it be, at least in Flash, having it be Iris
They
on
made
Earth
Iris
3.
Dr. Light.
On Earth 3. Now,
Anyway.
eventually, Legends of Tomorrow gave a closer version, but still, this is like her best prominent appearance in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's talk about this. So from the beginning and on, it's adapting it pretty well. In other words, the antimatter wave is going through, destroying Earths, and it's like, so they build these these towers, so they can essentially do what Flash does, where he vibrates through walls. But
Right.
So then the anti-monitor shows up.
The biggest mishandling.
All right. So the anti-monitor is actually in the background of the stream right now. He's that black, very simple looking dude. Here's how he actually is supposed to look. Now, here's the thing though.
Well, one of 2 designs.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. I think they went with a more simple design because of the budget.
That's true. But then his handling is
And by NJ, no, we don't know anything about the main Earth Wonder Woman in this. We know she exists, but we don't know what happened. Which I'm like,
I mean, that's fine. You can't have too many characters.
No, but it's like the only time we hear about the main Earth Wonder Woman is in the Green Lantern movie.
True.
But still, it's like, all right, fine. But at least we got a good version of Wonder Woman, NJ. Let's take this as a victory.
Yeah. And also we should have, there's Pariah, Don Constantine from the old universe.
Yeah, he's basically the pariah of this universe, which I thought was well done. Now, here's the thing. When this started, I did not think that they were going to link it to the previous universe. I want to be clear on that, because they didn't really, short of this, of where we're getting to, they never referenced the old stuff.
Maybe a little bit in Justice Society, a little.
Not really, no. They didn't reference like the pre Flashpoint 2 stuff.
True. I'm thinking about, they originally were going to reference it, but they cut it.
It could. So I as soon as I hear this, I'm like, that is a genius idea to do this.
And now let's get one thing out of the way. This is a case where what happened when Constantine sent the flashback during Apocalypse War. He ended up tainting him so that when he went to Apocalypse and saw Darkseid, he killed him.
Yeah, I think that Constantine did that because he knew Barry would not be able to kill baby Darkseid.
Now, unfortunately, this is where it also raises a whole bunch of, but wait, we see the DCAU, they have a Darkseid. Exactly. That's why we know these aren't the proper DCAU.
Yeah, and by the way, it's like people talked about that after part 3, and Krieg came out and said, yeah, it's just like this universe's version of the DCAU.
Because here's what they find out. Unlike where normally the multiverses came through a big bang explosion, instead, it was such a drastic event that it caused the splinter of time to happen within one universe, meaning a multiverse was formed without the Big Bang.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basic. So what happened is, they established, in keeping with DC lore, by the way, that Darkseid is a multiversal constant. There's only one Darkseid. That's 100% alike.
And trying to stabilize things, it ended up making things worse, like a cancer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually a great way to think about it. The multiverse exploding is because of like chaos and stuff, and the anti-monitors, yes, are basically antibodies. And
Yeah,
so here's the thing, though. This
because yeah,
movie tries to set up that there's an intelligence, but then it's like multiple anti-monitors show up.
and one, it makes Supergirl's death worthless.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Brit says, seemed to be a last minute change, but I do believe Craig said that Earth 1 Wonder Woman wasn't there to make a difference with the Earths. Okay, so it's like they didn't want to have.
Yeah.
They didn't want to have too many alternate versions of the Trinity. I mean, look, there's only one. The only one where there is more than one is Superman.
And that's for, I think, a legit reason to have one that's the old man, because Crisis had that.
Yeah, prominently. It's not like, oh, it was there. Plus, even in Crisis, there's only really one Wonder Woman.
And Batman was dead before the Crisis on Earth too.
Yeah, so it's like it's fine with that. But NJ says the crime syndicate was good minus Owlman. I liked when the building is about to fall on the syndicate's headquarters. They catch it and then just throw it away because they didn't want to land on their headquarters, but they still didn't care about the civilians.
That's so them.
That is so good. And also, I loved how each like actor like pretty much played the other version, the evil versions too, except for. So the Flash voice actor did not play
Johnny Quick.
Johnny Quick. It's actually Liam McIntyre who played Spartacus. He's in my intro. He played Captain Boomerang in the DC AMU, and he played Aquaman in this.
Nice. Well, yeah, this is where we get the whole multiple voices per actor and everything. That's part of why we get Terry voiced by Will Friedle, because he was voicing Kamandi.
Yeah, and that was cool too. Now, here's the other thing. The other thing that kind of communicates the budget of this movie is the fact that you have all these other characters making cameos, but barely any of them talk.
Right. Now, I do like having Huntress meeting up with Robin and Damian and everything.
Yeah, and I liked how this is when they complete like Batman's arc of like letting people in.
Yep. You have stuff like that. Again, having Terry be there, but then you have the whole stuff about them having to fight each other and everything.
Which again, it's like a lot of
that happened originally. That did happen originally.
And then with the Amazons, we have a world where the Amazons took over and don't trust men.
Amazons attack.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I'm gonna call it the Amazons attack Earth, and it's interesting how like different it is on that. And I'm like, okay,
but yeah, but then of course with again, we're just talking about the whole scene. But yeah, part 3 is where we started getting all the little homages to other worlds and everything.
No, here's the other thing, though, real quick. So Wonder Woman dies in this, but I think it's kind of confusing because it's kind of established that like when the Anti-Monitor destroys a world or something like that, are they sent to the Bleed? Because that's where Wonder Woman ends up.
No, they should have just been destroyed.
Then why is Wonder Woman still alive?
They made up some excuse.
I guess it's because she's immortal, but I'm like...
It makes no sense. She should not have gone to the Bleed. She should have just been erased.
Yeah, because that's what would have been actually kind of interesting if they did it that way, where like, if a world is destroyed by the Anti-Monitor, it's not technically being destroyed, it's just being moved.
But then that would defeat the whole purpose.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, I get the feeling they couldn't kill Wonder Woman, so they're like, let's just have her show up there, I guess.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate. Now, they did also close some doors to some other things like the Green Lantern show.
Yeah, I know. We got Razor. I like that.
That was voiced by the actor.
Yeah, I dug that. Barry Cameron says, what did you guys think of the Bat family and their interactions? I felt they were all really good. Really well done.
There are a lot of good moments that are exclusive to the DC AMU. We got to talk about Kevin.
Yeah, Yeah, what a send off to Kevin Conroy. We're like Joker's like
butchered the Mark Hamill part.
Yeah, where Joker's like, why do you care? The world's gonna end. And he goes, I care, Joker, because even if the world's gonna end, I'll go out being Batman.
I know, doing what I do best, being Batman.
And then he goes out as the punch connects, and I go, okay, that's cool. My problem with that scene, though, is how the fan base reacted, because here's the thing. Whenever people say, oh, they destroyed my childhood. No, they didn't. You could go watch those DVDs right now.
And again, there were clues already. This wasn't exact.
Plus, it's not.
Why
yeah,
are you looking like the original stuff and not the Justice League design?
I think they were. I think they were trying to. I think people reacted because people want there to be a continuation. But I go, Kevin's dead. There's no way they're continuing this universe.
Exactly.
Kevin's death meant that, like, yeah, it's like they're not going to continue this.
It's over.
Yeah, exactly. Now, they could do like a Green Lantern series or even a Wonder Woman series, but as far as doing a Justice League series, no, because you can't have a Justice League without Batman.
Exactly.
But it's like I felt that was still really cool. So they also blow up they also blow up the Super Friends.
I know, and the Teen Titans, but we don't know which version.
Yeah, all it says is Earth 2003, so I guess it's that Teen Titans.
True, but there could also be a chance it's Go.
It still says 2003 though, so I'm like, yeah, it's probably that version.
True.
But so you get that. So what you discover? All right, so they managed to blow up an anti-monitor, but with Supergirl supercharging in the sun, partly aided. So the monitor gives Supergirl part of her powers to turn into Harbinger, and then she supercharges herself with the sun, and then like a rocket fires straight at the anti-monitor, and she blows up that anti-monitor. And I will say, the voice acting by the Superman voice actor was superb in this scene.
Agreed.
Where he screamed as he's holding Kara.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. But then it's like, so they discover there's an army of anti-monitors.
That's when they realized we can't stop it.
Yeah. And then what they discover is, okay, so the Legion has the wish machine from Final Crisis, but we're ignoring that. And they try to like power it up, but it turns out it needs a sacrifice. Now,
the Miracle Machine, yeah.
The Miracle Machine.
Normally it doesn't need that, but for the sake of the story, I get it.
So Wonder Woman is immortal in this, and like everyone dies around her. So she's like, let me do it so that I can give my immortal life like purpose or something like that. And so she does it, and then it basically New Earths the DC universe. So straight up, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yep, but here they actually would be everyone is merging. Like the two Supermen, they're gonna merge.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't know what it's gonna look like. All we know is that it happens.
It's set up to probably be whatever Gunn would do.
And again, I will say, so Britt and I were like, but Superman and Wonder Woman don't end up together. But then I reminded her, okay, if you look at it, Superman and Wonder Woman always put the world first.
Yep.
So this actually works very well.
And they had their time together.
Yeah, exactly. NJ says, since there is only one Darkseid in the multiverse, doesn't mean that Darkseid from the Super Friends is the OG Darkseid. So again, this is like not like the Super Friends Darkseid.
Exactly. This is not that. These for just we don't know how. We don't need to know how these worlds became what they were.
All we have to, what it was, and again, I go back to what Krieg said. This is just this movie's version of those universes. It's not the universes.
Basically, here's how it works. All right. And like normally you would have a big bang that would make an infinite universe, or you have the omniverse where you have infinite space, an infinite canvas to do it. Instead, because there was no big bang, it was more of a catastrophic alteration of a multiversal singularity by killing Darkseid. You have one universe, and it's the cancer is the multiverse forming, where it's trying to fill up this this single universe, and it's overloading. It cannot hold an infinite multiverse within it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's convoluted, but it makes sense. It actually fits within lore for DC lore.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, that kind of works with that.
They didn't BS. They didn't do time travel.
Yeah. Thank you. Finally, I get to use this clip again. Yay! Where is it?
Time travel.
There you go.
Totally, they didn't totally butcher what the comics would do to make up their own thing. They fit it within what is actual DC lore.
And the other interesting part about this is Constantine doesn't cross over.
Nope.
He takes his punishment, and I go, okay, that's really cool.
He does, because he should.
Yeah, he should, because he kind of led to this. So it's like, okay.
Twice. I mean, he already suffered in House of Mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like that was his salvation. He didn't, but he wanted to be punished, so he was punished.
Yeah, and then it's like he kept trying to escape, and then Spectre's like, "That's not why I put you in there."
This should have been your haven, but you kept wanting to self punish yourself, so you escape. So fine, you want to be punished, you'll be punished.
And again, this is this movie's greatest strength, how it links together two universes. And from what like Sam told me, or like I've heard, these were always meant to be the same thing, like one story.
I believe that. I gotta say, this was the best send-off for Matt Ryan as Constantine. This, more than anything, was his best send-off.
Yeah. Would you guys have killed the baby Darkseid, knowing what he does?
I might have, but if I also knew how important he was.
That's the other thing. If you know how important he is, yeah,
it's like killing Galactus. It's like killing Galactus.
Yeah, here's the thing. Let me put it this way: if he's not connected to the multiverse, yes. If he's needed for the multiverse to be stable, I can't do it.
It's like killing Galactus. You can't, as much as people want to. There's always a bad thing with that order. There has to be a replacement because you need that order.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, you really can't.
I mean, is it horrible that such horrible beings have to exist? Yes, but it is what it is. There has to be. It's like death has to exist.
Yeah, exactly. But and again, it's like even as a send off to the DC animated movies, ignoring like Matt Ryan, actually pretty good. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I would say that for closing the door from everything that started in Flashpoint. Which I've heard some people say that Flashpoint actually bleed in from the DCAU. I think no.
No, I think if you want to take the movies that came before Flashpoint as one universe, that's closer.
That's closer, but not the DCAU.
No. Absolutely not. None of those characters act like those versions of the characters. No.
Exactly. So I could say, I mean, now granted, you could just pick and choose which of those DC animated movies.
Yeah, because here's the thing, though, with that. The reason why I link those as one continuity, because that's kind of the way comic books work, is that there are a few stories that may not reference each other, but they're still part of the same universe.
It's kind of hard. So wait, are you saying Superman, Batman coexist with the Justice League, Doom, and all that? Or
yeah, I'd say that they take place before those.
All right. Well,
you can still link it.
That's okay. That's fair. Again, it's just kind of convoluted.
We should do an episode where we try and like thread them together on a timeline. That'd be actually really cool.
Some other ones we can't, like Gods and Monsters, or
the ones that clearly are based on main universe DC, we could probably do.
Definitely.
That may be an Under Two Capes or a CLD in the future, but it's like. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Yeah, the Anti-Monitor is the detracting part of this movie.
And I'm a big fan of the Anti-Monitor. One of my favorite villains, and this did him so dirty.
Like at first they set up him being like actually before you see him, it's pretty much the Anti-Monitor. It's like there's this one intelligence stuff, and I go, okay, that's dope. But then it's like it continues on. I'm like, no. Oh, but Wonder Woman survived at the end, but did she lose her immortality? Yes, because remember, Hippolyta says you're not immortal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way I caught it. But I'm like, yeah, up until you see him. Because when he emerges, even when he first emerges and he's like a shadow, that's cool. That's close.
You say he's like the Shadow Demon.
Yeah, because there is a point in the Crisis book where he is a shadow.
No,
But it's
I think that's what they were going for. I think they were going to make him more like a shadow demon.
which that would have worked. But then they turn him into that guy in the background, and I go, that is not the Anti-Monitor.
I just like, we didn't talk about Lex.
Lex was also
And this is a completely separate universe, Lex.
yeah, and I love where he's the one that comes up with the plan, and then before he crosses over, he goes, "You're welcome."
Because he was instrumental.
Yeah, exactly. I dig
Scummy,
that.
still completely scummy, but he's more like scummy in that I'm the only one who's willing to do it.
I also like how Lois is like, of course you would suggest a plan that would end up killing Superman.
Of course. But that was, I mean, that's so Lois, but yeah, with the Anti-Monitor again, it's like I said, done so dirty that just having him be this generic doomsday villain.
That's kind of what he is, and yeah, that's the problem, because it's like, besides that, that's the one part where I'm like,
and they treat the Monitor fine.
Yeah, the Monitor is pretty much there.
And yet it's like, but wait, his death would only work if the Monitor had an intelligence. It doesn't work if it's just a.
Yeah, and by Nemo says, is this series of movies great? I mean, it's good. In terms of them redoing it, this doesn't close the door on them doing a Crisis in the future. It'll be years down the line, but they could still do it. Case in point, we got a Watchmen animated movie after getting the live action movie.
But that was a good number of years after, though, still.
Yeah, it'll have to be a while, but I think that they could still do that.
Here's what I give it. I give it a low 7 out of 10. It's what I give the whole trilogy.
Me, I give it an 8.5.
All right, but yeah, for me, it's a low 7. A lot of it is because of the Anti-Monitor.
Now, let me ask you this. How do you rate the entire Tomorrowverse?
Oh, compared to the DC AMU?
Sure. Compared to the DC AMU, I give it a 7 out of 10.
I was going to say 7 out of 10 overall.
Because they butchered Green Lantern. I'm just going to tell you, that Green Lantern movie was god-awful.
Basically, Tomorrowverse was all the suffering they had at the end of the DC AMU turned up to 11.
Yeah, exactly. The DC AMU...
basically, the DC AMU at least had some structure at first, then it went off the rails. The Tomorrowverse just felt like they threw anything at the wall that they could see get stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. Having Warworld happen before Justice League even happened, having the Legion happen before any of the others. It's like, I mean, starting with Superman, that was fine. Batman Long Halloween, all right. But
JSA being a Wonder Woman movie, great.
Yeah, but once it was like from Warworld onward is when it was off the rails.
But none of the Amada brothers did done dirty like the World Forger. Scott Snyder made him an absolute joke. Again, One Punch Man.
I don't agree.
Here's the thing. Previous to Scott Snyder, was the World Forger even a thing?
No. He created the World Forger.
Yeah, so I'm like, what do you mean he did him dirty?
Exactly. Not only that, though, but the Anti-Monitor was still a threat during Death Metal.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at that world where he won, and he was Mobius, and it was all white void. We saw what happened if he won.
And he was like disassembling Batman.
Exactly. You have that. We saw Darkseid if he won Final Crisis.
Barry Cameron says, okay, here's my big question. If the DCU, I assume he says last and sets off, could we get a Crisis trilogy that surpasses this one? We could. I was talking to Robert about this actually beforehand, Cameron, and what I said is they could, if they wanted to. They would have to like trim down a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of filler stuff in the original Crisis. Like that scene involving Red Tornado with Blue Devil. You don't need that.
But what I said is that if they want to do it as a movie, they could do Infinite Crisis and trim down a lot of stuff.
Well, you could do that too, yeah. I'm saying if they would adapt Crisis on Infinite Earths, there's a lot of stuff you could just trim out. Because again, there is so much. Like the stuff with Amethyst and Dr. Fate, where she gets blinded by the shadow seas, and then Dr. Fate's like, "What is it I see in you? Oh, go find out what happened in Amethyst." You don't need that in a movie. You know, there's so much you can trim out of Crisis.
Yeah, and Britt says for Wonder Woman 10 out of 10 by default. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
That's the other thing. When Britt and I talked about the Tomorrowverse, one of the things we said is that this automatically gets a leg up on the AMU, because the problem with the AMU is that at one point Wonder Woman becomes a mouthpiece for Lois.
I agree.
Yeah,
That is,
it takes a lot when you agree with me on that. Where with this, yes, Lois exists and she's fine. Diana exists and she's her own character. They're not like at odds like that.
yep, and they had them together after Lois passed.
Yeah,
Which means who knows how long. In fact, we don't know how long that was. She probably could have died within the past 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the cool part about this. I'm like, no, they catered to both fans. They respected both types of, I'm sure unintentionally, but still. But NJ says, can we see Perpetua again for an upcoming big event? No, I don't think Perpetua's coming back.
No, Perpetua, I liked her, but she was definitely killed off. Hands down, no coming back.
Good, because I did not like Perpetua.
She was transferred under the remains of the Source Wall, and then the Batman Who Laughs obliterated her.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I actually did like the idea of Perpetua and this whole what happened beforehand. I actually did like Scott Snyder expanding how the early days of the DC universe was, because very few people did.
Yeah, exactly.
And the World Forger, it makes sense. Someone has to create these worlds.
Yeah, exactly. And so now let's do a little Q&A. You guys can ask us anything about the DC AMU Tomorrowverse.
Do not bring up Trinity #1.
Do not bring up Trinity. We have Robert still hasn't read it yet. Britt and I are gonna discuss it on Super Wonder Legacy. If you mean live action, Crisis was supposed to be adapted for the transition from EU to U. That's true.
To a point, I question if they really were going to do that or just do Flashpoint.
Me too, because it's like when Hamada was like, oh yeah, we were building to a crisis. I'm like, there was literally zero setup to Crisis.
Yeah, a crisis, yes. Meaning you can use the generic term for crisis, but not, By the way, I got a question for you, Jared. What Elseworld universe would you like to see adapted, but live action or animated, but never will?
I know never will? That's a good question.
For me, the Just Imagine universe.
Maybe the Frank Miller universe, but
we've had that adapted. We've already had that adapted.
The whole thing? No.
Oh, true. We've had Year One and Returns.
Honestly, Dark Knights of Steel.
That's good, but I agree. But like I said, for me, Just Imagine Stan Lee created the DC universe. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, they can't do that.
They could, but I doubt they ever will.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the Tangent universe, never going to happen. Too different.
Yeah, and yes, we were going to get more movies before this. It probably would have still ended with Crisis, but we were going to get other animated movies. Like, I think that the Justice Society movies, we're supposed to get a lot more of those, with like Wonder Woman being the lead.
And now again, let's make clear, this is not Gunn's fault. It was more the uncertainty.
Yeah, this ending.
I won't even say Zaslav's fault.
No, this was just self-done because they didn't know what was going to happen. So they said in the event that they have to, that they tell us cancel it or like end it, we've already ended it. So we can just be done with it now.
And yet we leave wiggle room open at the end.
Yeah, so if we want to do like the adventures of that one world, we can. But still, it's like they
end on their own terms. End on their own terms.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's because you don't want it to be like they're doing like in the middle of like say a Wonder Woman movie series, and all of a sudden they're like, end it.
But we still have it up. End it.
Yeah, exactly. End it. Just end it.
Yep. So again, that's why we say there's
like, for instance, here's a good example. We were supposed to get more of the DC AMU movies, but after Wonder Woman, they told them end it. That's why we got Dark Apocalypse War.
Right.
Yeah, because otherwise, I think they said we would have gotten like another Teen Titans movie or something like that. But then DC came and said, or WB says, end it.
Yep.
Apologies. I mean, could we get more movies, or was it the last portion in terms of shared universe? We could get another shared universe. It's just,
Oh yeah,
it won't be this one.
exactly. It won't be this one. It probably won't now. And given this, I doubt they even want to directly link up to this one after this.
No, I think they'll just start fresh. I don't think they'll even reference a crisis that occurred.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It leaves the wiggle room to start a new universe. They're just never going to reference what happened before because they even made it they made it absolutely clear. No one's going to recall anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, no, as soon as you walk in there, essentially your mind is wiped, is what they really went for.
And you're merging whatever new version is in there.
Yeah, your histories come together. It's kind of like Superman Reborn in that way.
Exactly, because we know two Supermen are going in there and they merge.
Mm-hmm. And their histories merge.
Of course, I don't know how, and who knows how.
As far as we know, it could be this new universe is with Diana, or it could be with Lois. We don't know.
Because both possibilities are intertwined.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, the DC AMU had so much potential, especially with Super Wonder, but they ruined it. Like, it was, yeah, that's the thing.
And even I call BS on the whole. Oh, Lois is so important to return. She's important to the death and the funeral, not return.
Yeah, exactly. She's a son. Well, he said to death. Actually, she was so important to death, and I go,
okay, so not barely.
Even when I had Sam on, I was like, no, she's not, because she's like just there to hold him.
It's the funeral.
She plays a very vital role. You could even argue somewhat return because she helps with like taking down Cyborg Superman.
And meeting up with the other Superman before the real deal showed up. The whole hold it right there, Buster.
Yeah, but it's like then you add on having Diane talk about what Clark and I had was nice, but you're his true love, and I go,
oh, that felt railroaded like you wouldn't believe. Even I admit that is rare. I don't not like that, and I'm a Chloe's fan.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting is I think it was either Cameron or someone else commented on one of my videos that said where this universe fell apart is that they took a universe that was established basically based on the new 52 and then tried to force in a bunch of post-crisis stuff.
Yep.
And you cannot do that. Barry Britt says James Tucker wanted another Titans movie and a Justice League Dark movie. And he also said he wanted to have a movie dedicated to making Superman and Wonder Woman's breakup like a spectacle, adapting Action Comics 600. Like they would have broken up for that.
Okay, 600.
That's what he said.
Okay, I've actually read 600, and that didn't even really deal. It's like they acknowledged the kissing and all that, and then they just moved forward. And yes, there was a big action piece, but it had nothing to do with the relationship. The relationship portion were just a little tacked onto that issue.
Yeah, but again, you're dealing with someone that thought that Lois played a vital part in the death of Superman. Death.
I can't call him a tourist, but he does know some part. But here's what I call it. I would call it a frequent tourist, as in someone.
Do you know what it is, Robert?
Do you get my
yes.
A frequent tourist.
It's
someone who's been there regularly
building off
enough.
Of that.
Yeah, they've been there regularly enough. They do know some stuff, but they're still a tourist.
To build off of that, it's because a lot of these guys don't read the more recent comics. Even Sam said, and to his credit, Sam said that like, hey, I stopped reading comics after the 90s. So I'm like, they keep assuming that the comics are supposed to be that way. Also, NJ brings up another cringe part. Diana saying she is more partial to the one with the sunglasses, the one called the Eradicator.
Once again, of course she's infatuated with the one that kills.
I'm like, what the hell?
That's now I will say this. One thing I will always give all these universes, the voice cast.
Voice cast is always really good. Because I'm sorry.
Rosario Dawson.
She was great as Wonder Woman.
She was so good. I mean, I liked her as Artemis, but she was so much better as Diana.
Yeah, because she got both the warrior part. I love where, and honestly, I also like the voice actress that was in War, because she's like, "Come on, Giant, I'm getting bored."
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Rosario was so good at it.
Also,
you can tell she's
Anakin Skywalker voicing Aquaman.
Yep. I was about to say what with Rosario, she is a nerd. She is a
gets
fan.
it. There's a reason why she was narrating the DC documentary on Max.
Exactly, because she is a super nerd.
Yeah, she's been in like all this stuff, and I'm like, yep.
And she does know stuff. If you see interviews with her, I mean, when you see Kevin Smith talk about her from Clerks, he mentioned she is a big comic nerd. She actually wrote her own comic once.
And again, it comes through in her performance. That's why I say you could tell based on the voice cast who is a fan of these characters, because she puts a lot of effort into how Diana would sound, and she gets it.
She does. In fact, I say she's tied with Susan Eisenberg as one of my favorite voices.
I think she is the modern Susan Eisenberg.
She is in many ways. Now, granted, Susan Eisenberg is the cheaper option.
Yeah, and Eisenberg is great in her own right. I'm not trying to discount her, but I'm saying Dawson is on that level at this point, I think.
Oh, yeah. Big time. And I gotta say, Dawson is also that type of actress. She's not a stunt casting at all. She's one of those celebrities. She's kind of like a Patrick Warburton or Nicole Sullivan, a recognized name, but does character acting very well.
Yeah, 100%. Even Jason O'Mara as Batman, that was actually a solid casting.
Oh yeah, is that good as Bruce Greenwood? No, but still very close.
Yeah, and honestly, also we had Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan. That's never not going to be good.
Oh yep. I mean,
Tony Todd is Darkseid.
The second voice. First one was Steve Bloom, but he just growled. Steve Bloom would have been perfect if actually given something to do.
Yeah, but I kind of like the Darkseid necessarily without that growl.
Oh yeah, Tony Todd was great. Although I'll be honest, his voice did come up a little too soft for Darkseid.
Yeah, but so the one part I will give for the Reign of Superman is that part where Cyborg Superman is holding him and goes, "Open your eyes," and he does, and it's like heat vision because Lois had opened the sun shields.
Yep. Oh, I do love though the whole bit with Cyborg Superman, especially the we were looking for Superman, and where was he? And you weren't even dead yet.
Yeah, I love that.
They really nailed that. They nailed Hank Henshaw. They really nailed that.
Yeah, they made some changes to him, but I think it was appropriate changes that still worked. You still told that story.
Exactly. Like I said, the whole "you weren't even dead yet." It's like you hear his pain and anguish.
Also, Connor, they really nailed.
Right, exactly. Granted, they added a little. I know. Now, granted, they were adding a little bit of the Matrix Supergirl elements.
Yeah, but still, for pretty much everything, I love where Steel comes back to his hideout. He thinks he's secure, and Lois is right there, and he goes, "Crap." and it's really cool. He references Justice League War because Superman saves him in that movie.
Yep. As opposed to, and they actually set it up as opposed to retconning and it's somewhere in.
Yeah, exactly. Now, again, if I had been in charge of the universe, obviously I would not have broken up Superman and Wonder Woman. But and I was allowed to basically do that, I would have done Doomed. And Britt and I says as well, because Doomed is made to fit in this universe. Cut out the Brainiac part. Or make this a part 2, a part 1, whatever you have to do.
I'm going to be Darkseid instead of Brainiac. If you want
there you go. There you go. Do that.
In fact, have it be. You know what? Actually, the Doomsday virus sounds like something Darkseid would do.
Yeah, because he created Doomsday in this universe.
So yeah, he would do the virus to try and corrupt Superman.
Yeah, and turn Superman into his lackey essentially. There you go.
And yeah, and he could also have it encoded into the virus that, as Doomsday, Superman is forced to do whatever Darkseid tells him to do, but he ends up fighting it back.
And then you can end. So the Doomed movie ends with Superman leaving Earth until he can control it like he did in the comics.
Or he's believed dead because he went into the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And then Darkseid invades, and then Superman comes out of the sun and he's newly purged.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how you could do that. Because here's the thing about Doomed. While it's flawed, it somewhat adapts death of Superman. Interestingly, because obviously if Clark turned into Doomsday permanently, that's the death of Superman.
Yep.
So I'm like,
I mean,
okay,
it was
and
so
you didn't have to break up Superman and Wonder Woman
exactly.
because you could have still adapted that. Mhm.
Yeah, and it could have still been a two-parter.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like
part two.
the first part deals entirely with Doomsday. You could even include some elements like that couple getting boiled from Doomsday's heat.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, that still terrified me reading that. Just like, ah!
Yeah, that was one of the also really unique parts because I don't think they did that with Doomsday Post Crisis. It was like
No.
there was a death field around him.
Oh yeah, and he kept evolving. Oh, gee, they could have done so much with the evolutions.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I never liked. They do all this stuff. He becomes this underwater sea creature, and then he just crawls right out of it.
Yeah. Now, I will say they did slowly show the spikes coming out of him in the movie. So there was that. They did kind of, but not as good as they could have done.
Exactly. But so, yeah, Doomed is what they should have done. And would now, unfortunately, now, as far as the Wonder Woman movie,
I wouldn't have done the Wonder Woman. If that's what they wanted to do, or let me put it this way. Have Gail Simone write the Wonder Woman movie because when she
wrote the
did,
first one.
Yeah, and that's the one that's way better.
Yeah, and to be fair, anyone who says, "Oh, but the Steve stuff," we don't know which part she wrote.
Yeah, that's true. And now here's the thing about the Bloodlines movie: you could tell that was like thrown together because even the animation style is way different.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh my god! And then it's like they tried to adapt a Perez story and the Rucka story, but they just did it so crappily.
Exactly.
And I get it. Sam told me that they were trying to do Hush, but for Diana to like introduce her world. But I go, what? That doesn't really work. So honestly, honestly, have Gail or Rucka do it, but tell them you can't break them off screen. Please do not do that.
I'm pretty sure I don't think they would have if it was already established in the world. Like Tomasi was following orders. I don't think that was his idea.
Let me put it this way: it wasn't his idea. He just wrote it very crappily.
Oh, no, I will acknowledge that. I'm just saying, no, it's not like he took it upon himself to do it. I'm positive if he was told to keep them together, he would have.
Yeah, exactly. Because at that point, they were trying to like undo that and set up Rebirth. So I get that. The reason why I don't like Tomasi is because of like what he did with what he did while he was writing all the stuff he forced in. But that's besides the point.
Exactly. Especially when you only have a certain amount of time and everything.
And by the way, Hush, the movie, I'm going to tell you this. Up until the ending, it's Hush.
For the most part, yeah, there were still some changes like Bane instead of Croc.
It wasn't as bad until you get to that ending where it's the Riddler is Hush. And I go, what?
Yeah, I mean, at least with Long Halloween, it's going with one of the people we know could have been Holiday.
And their reasoning, Robert, was, well, if we did it exactly like the comics, you'd be able to predict the ending.
Oh, God, it's that stupid Robert Kirkman claim when he was doing Walking Dead.
Yeah, and I go, then don't adapt a book.
Even Jim Lee was not a fan of it.
Yeah, I'm like, no, it's kind of funny. I have the deluxe edition of Hush, and yeah, you are right. They ask him, what do you think of the anime movie? And Jim Lee basically says, sometimes you're going to be able to adapt it well, sometimes you're not going to be. He basically said that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, meh.
Yeah, it's like, hey, he's probably like, I still got paid royalties, so I don't care.
And I did the artwork for the box.
Yeah, so it's like, see, a lot of the AMU movies, let me put it this way, all of these movies from Flashpoint on, at least I can get some fun out of it, because I'll give you this, the death in the death of Superman, the fight against Doomsday is freaking awesome.
Oh, it is. Although,
and the way he kills him by like ramming his head so hard it flips around.
Now, I will say though, that moment like Lois said, like, what a lucky man I am. Even I'm like, no.
They stole that from Superman Wonder Woman.
It's like, no, that's not. No, Clark should have been. Superman Doomsday got it better. I said, that's all that matters.
Yeah, the what a lucky man I was. That's what Clark said when he died in Death of Superman Rebirth, essentially. That's what they did. See, Robert, this is what makes people not like Lois, is when people give her those moments.
Okay, but
Like they did that with New Frontier as well. They gave all of Diana's good lines to Lois.
well, to be fair, Darwin Cook was heavily involved with that one.
No, I don't care. That's not the point of it. The point is that they did that. That's why some people have problems with Lois and feel that she's forced.
I can.
I'm not saying you have to agree with her or think it's justified. I'm saying that's why.
No, and I can see why people feel that way. I do. I just also feel that's a little blown out of proportion in my eyes.
Okay. All right. Britt says Tucker said was salty at Flop because he thought he could piggyback on Wonder Woman in 2017. Yeah, he thought that the reason why they made a Wonder Woman movie is because they were trying to get on that Wonder Woman hype train from the first Gal Gadot movie.
Okay, who do you think handled the DC animated movies better? You had Tucker, you had Krieg.
Krieg, definitely Krieg. Because, again, at no point was Diana used as a mouthpiece.
Yeah, Tucker.
At no point. Again,
Tucker tried. He tried.
The Tomorrowverse had issues, don't get me wrong. But comparing the two, I much prefer the Tomorrowverse.
All right.
Because, because there was no point where, like, it all went downhill.
True. That is very true. There was no point where it all went down.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. So all in all, this was a pretty good movie. I still give all three parts an 8 out of 10.
Yep, I give it a low 7, but again, it's not like I'm getting. That's still good in my eyes.
It's still above average. So there you go. That's about what we can say about this and agree. It's above average.
Definitely above average.
But yeah, so in terms of, I'll get with JHeat and determine what he wants to cover for movie night. But Robert, where can one find you and what have you got coming on your channel besides trying to show me up in terms of a book off?
Oh, darn it. Okay, all things joking aside, I have my Pro Teachers Noob. You got the link down below. I got a bunch in the can, including now 2 episodes with Britt going over Peter David's Supergirl. That'll be coming up eventually. And that's pretty much it. I'm trying to get back into doing the game streaming. It's just, life in the way and all that.
Hell yeah. So for me, on Monday, Britt and I were releasing Super Wonder Legacy episode 97, where we talk about the DC AMU and go in depth on why it failed. Obviously, I have Wonder Woman Wednesday. Under Two Capes, we'll talk about what we want to do. And in terms of movie night, I will get with JHeat. But anyway, guys, stay heroic. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod, Zois, and Max About for life. Oh, and Steve Trevor, Steve Never, he belongs in the core of the sun. See you guys later. Bye-bye.